Yeah, okay, so we're in the next part. Please go check out the previous part to gauge your bearings. I was talking in that previous part, briefly, about how it is that black girls allow themselves in black households when they're dating, not black households, sorry, but in black relationships, when they're dating our guys, like black okies, they put themselves in a position to basically play bride, play girl, or like wife, before the guy even so much as makes a decision to propose marriage to her. And this makes them embittered later on. And I spoke about how it is that I had a fellow sister in dating men in the same family that was utterly domesticated, like entirely just like sold to being a little domestic goddess or a domestic worker. Frankly, she was like a maid. Go habo my ex's family home, and like, yeah, house growing up, upbringing, family home, to a point where now, after my ex-boyfriend had made me a girlfriend for like 3 years, his cousins, the older ones, were starting to look at me sideways on some, why aren't you like them? Why aren't you like her? And for me, it was like, you guys grew up here, so if you're peeling carrots and your nails are getting chopped off as a result, you get to do that. But you must not, unless you must not expect me or Protea or Pimville or Mamilodi, any of my family homes. Expect me like papa, expect me in the kitchen, go Mamilodi or go on fire. But do not expect me, guys, go hara kitcheni for crying out loud, of my boyfriend's family when I'm not yet a bride up in this monster. And his cousins passed me shade, right? They didn't give me shade. They just kind of suggested, like hinted at it. Nobody was mean to me in that regard, right? I can't say they passed me shade, but I definitely did get a side eye one time or two where I would not be scrubbing or whatever or cleaning. Type thing. And when I rocked up at 6 p.m. at one family event instead of like first thing in the morning ka 80, before I can even wake up out of my own bed at home, yeah, they were looking at me on some, when are you gonna start helping out? And I low-key kind of made it clear that, when is your man gonna like propose marriage? It's been 3 years, you know. These days there are personal loans for lobola, these days there are personal loans for wedding rings, and frankly, I'm not pedantic, I'm not iffy, I'm not gonna give him grief for, I'm not gonna be one of those shallow chicks that are like, hey, my man proposed to me a personal loan. Your brother over here has everything he needs in order to do what he needs to do where I'm concerned. So ask him when he's gonna go and pop the question, then I'll go and answer to you when I'll start cleaning a dish or two in your house. I kind of low-key hinted that, when is your cousin gonna propose? Cause on that day, I'm out here flying. Never mind like walking or even wiping kitchen counters. I would clean like the Flash. I would kotisa, and gladly I would go to all the homes of the family collectively across all of South Africa and gladly kotisa. I would inebriate myself with a lack of sleep, walk around like a zombie all day long because I ain't never eaten, neither have I slept because I've been on my feet all day. Just kisoka papaya setu. Hey, after the dude has given me a little bit of a bling money and thing. When I get to like flash this stuff, I can go officing. I'm walking around like Beyonce. Go, if you wanna, then you better put a ring on it. I would be doing this all day at the office, and because of that, it would justify me getting my knees all ashy in your kitchen. They got it. However, they never gave me grief concerning that particular petition. Why? Because something else stood for me. Something else stood for me, and that's what I'm talking about right now. My ex-boyfriend, when I met him, was okay, listen, and then I made him the kind of man that other women would want. And whatever it is that I did in him, it clearly appeared, since I became so famous amidst his family, no other woman had ever prospered to achieve. So I basically did a whole flip, a 180 on a man that the family then, upon seeing his transformation thanks to my presence and were like, rah 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 rah. I was getting applauded. There was like like proper crowds were cheering all up in that family for me because I did something in my ex that everybody loved and appreciated. Mothers will initially give any girl that their son brings home, if at all they're like, one of those mothers, a little bit of attitude. And I did get a little bit of attitude the first night that I met my ex's mother. It was at a restaurant opening of my ex's best friend, and the family, my ex's family was there to basically celebrate the opening of one of my ex's best friend's restaurant. And since he was like a son to them, they were there. And when I got introduced on some this is Karabo, my girlfriend, the mother was like, hello, and she gave me a little bit of attitude. The dad was like a dad, kind of nonchalant, etc. The sister was sweet though, but I didn't meet the sister that same day, right? I had met her already before, but by the time I met the parents, parents, I was being given a little bit of low-key attitude, shade by the mom, because moms are like that. And also, it had not been a very long time since my ex and his ex broke up, right? The woman that was in his life, so the mom was probably thinking, hey, you're busy with all these girls now, who's this one? And like just 2 months ago, I was the one that was in my kitchen in my house was this other girl, right? So the mother was like, I guess I'm gonna have to deal with another girlfriend, whatever, right? I started getting beaming smiles and hugs and kisses and grandmothers that look at me with love in their eyes and whatnot. Something like 5 to 6 months. No, not 5 to 6 months, like 3 to 4 months. Not even. Like, well, basically from the first time that my ex's mother met me, I only ever saw them again maybe like 2 months later, even though I of course kept seeing my ex daily. So it was only like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 months into our relationship when I started getting received with all of those hugs, all of those wide eyes, with all of that gladness in the face, joy beaming, because I had subdued the beast and their son. And that is what worked for the mom. That's what they liked. That's what made the grandmother basically just sing praises of me. That's what made the whole family just be like, okay, see, I'm tata. Why? Because I subdued their beast. I subdued their beast. And so because I subdued him, I now was all of a sudden acceptable. I was not just another pretty girl or another random female that my boy is gonna bring home. I was not just some other girl that could or could not work out, and at this point I don't have emotional energy to be smiling at all the random girls you bring by home. I became somebody that the mother was now rooting for to become his wife. She was rooting. She was even to all the way to the end of the relationship. That woman was rooting for me to end up married to her son. But you see, there's a difference between a mom rooting a woman in a son's life versus the son himself being decisive about that chick. My ex, even though his mama was rooting for me, his cousins were rooting for me, his aunties, he wasn't exactly trying to propose marriage. And so he ultimately lost me. And when he did, everybody was disappointed, everybody was sad, whatever, but it didn't work out. So essentially, I made the right decision to not scrub some pots. What is this? At this guy, at my ex's grandmother's houses and everybody else's houses, his own mama's house and whatnot. I made the right decision to refuse to peel some potatoes. I made the right decision because he never made an honest woman out of me. He never proposed marriage. He later regretted it. He later wanted to come back. He later, all that jazz, but he never made his decision on time. And for me, it's about that late regret, right? Men, you're given everything you need to make a decision concerning the right girl. There often tends to be a je ne sais quoi, a difference about the one woman that really gets to you. But you see, greed, a rapacity, just a lack of satisfaction sometimes makes you think that you still gotta, like, peep your head out like a peacock all over the show looking around. Like, trust the mother's instincts, and also trust never mind the mother's instincts, but the whole family. Like, if an entire family is rooting for a woman, dude, what are you doing still looking for another girl? Like, what are the odds that another guy was gonna come along? What are the odds? What are the odds that your family is going to super duper, super califragilisticexpialidocious love another woman the way they loved this woman, given that statistically, based on the sample of women that you dated in your life that you did take home to your family, there's only one that they all were just like, this is the one. What are the odds that another woman of this nature is going to come around? My ex kept on looking around. He literally was using me as a placeholder. He wasn't sure until he was sure. He was not sure until he was sure. And the guy got sure when he got sure later on. He went out there, flew in the sunset, made like Tarzan on a rope, swinging on it on some watch out for the jungle out there. Watch out for the tree. He hit a tree and tried to come back, and I was like, I'm sorry, I love Jesus now, and you ain't even in him, so we're not doing this. Like, proper, that guy messed up with me and devastated his whole family. And now today he's married to a woman that everybody knows is number 2 to the other one back in the day. He never got it better. However, men tend to be given everything that they need to make a decision concerning one particular woman. And God is gracious enough to also show these guys who this woman is. And they're the ones that, out of greed and rapacity and thinking they can get her prettier, they can get her shorter, they can get her maybe more lighter in complexion, they can get her with higher cheekbones, they can get her with poutier lips, they can get her with wider hips, they can get her with my gwagwe, they can get her with this, upon thinking that they can improve upon what and heaven it is that they have in her, they then mess up with literally the ride or die that made sense, and then scan the jungle, realize it doesn't get any better. Best about Funubuya afterwards. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, christened on Tuesday, married on Wednesday, took ill on Thursday, worse on Friday, died on Saturday, buried on Sunday. This is the life of Solomon Grundy. Like, this guy marries on Wednesday a woman that was not there on Tuesday. He marries the wrong girl because he messed up with the one he met on Tuesday, and so his entire life is messed up. The Bible says that a woman is a helper suitable to a man, and so therefore you must understand that a woman is the wind beneath the wings of a man. And so you make a really good choice when you opt for a woman that the Lord has opened up your eyes to see. When you gaze upon the Proverbs, if you learn wisdom, my son, you will choose the right wife, and you will tend to have violent feelings for her. You will have a violence of passion in your heart for her. Otherwise, you're going to go out there in strange places, ditch a woman that you have passions for, but that you're taking for granted. A woman that you imagine, it's been 3 years, whatever, like proper. My ex and I, when we started out in our relationship, it was all hectic with public displays of affection. 5 years later, it was all hectic with public displays of affection. We never died out. The flame never stopped burning. We never broke up because I stopped loving him. We broke up because he became a buffoon. Has he ever found that passion again? Absolutely not. You tend to be given everything you need in order to live a life in godliness. You know when you have met a woman that really does it for you, but because there is something that you feel is kind of out of place, like I can say, maybe yeah, you then out here messing up with a woman that everybody in your family that was properly like wiped your fecal matter in diapers when you were still a baby is like, this is it. You've been around them all your life. And then they've seen you date from high school all the way up until before you met this chick, and nobody has ever won so much ubiquitous approval in your family, and then you play with that, dude. Like proper. I did right me now at my ex-boyfriend's home. Why? Because I would have just embedded about all the nail manicures I lost due to all the pots I was stirring, due to all the events that I could not miss, due to the fact that I was hard knock trying to get a man to propose marriage to me. That even though his family had made it clear that, yo, dude, this chick, yeah, he was wasting time. Yo, recreational dating. You know what? You will get some bandages on you girls. You will out here get some plasters waiting on a cancer. You will be dealing with an amputatable infection because you did not nip it in the bud on time. You gonna have some problems. You're gonna have some problems. Like, wait on the Lord to do a better thing in you, and stop kotisaring the living daylights out of yourselves in homes where a dude is not serious about you, even though his grandmother thinks you're the best thing since sliced bread. You're not sleeping with the grandmother. You're not about to give the grandmother babies. You are not laying in bed with the grandmother. You are not looking longingly and lovingly into the eyes of the grandmother over a candle-lit dinner, and you are also not getting told I love you every single night after a 5-hour conversation with your grandmother, with his grandmother. You are looking at a guy that, even though you do have those 5-hour conversations before you go to sleep every night, and if anything, really and truly anybody hangs up at all because you end up being like hello, and the other person on the other side is asleep, and that's why the conversation ends. When you have that kind of relationship with a woman and you don't propose marriage on time, Suganjandin, you deserve to lose her. When you, like proper, when you are utilizing Vodacom's peak hour 3 minutes, and you wait until midnight even though you've got a working day the next next day, in order for you to speak for hours with your man, both of you, of which you're so young you don't have enough money, so you're still on airtime. It's not just wire, like limitless prepaid, postpaid, maraki prepaid. So you wait for Vodacom's peak hours from 6 a.m. in the morning, and so you wait to call your man at that time, and you just stay on the phone, yeah, proper. If at all you're doing that and going to bed only at 2 a.m. only to wake up at 5 to go to work because you're busy falling in love, when that's the woman, when that is the woman that you have in your hands, understand next time the chick that you end up dating is going to tell you, hey, it's almost midnight, I've got work tomorrow, so I gotta go. And you're gonna miss Karabo. You're gonna miss the fact that Karabo was prepared to be drowsy at work, desking, struggling to answer the calls, go call centering, just because she would have much rather stayed on the phone with you. You're gonna miss her when some other woman tells you she gotta get off the phone. And that's what happened with my ex. So manje, kotisa as much as you want, but what's wise is, like, frankly, properly and thoroughly waiting on the Lord, so that you don't have to deal with all those mishaps, getting an answer from God. Marakoto, when you don't have God, you will be like Solomon Grundy as a man. Born on a Monday, christened on Tuesday, married on Wednesday, took ill on Thursday, worse on Friday, died on Saturday, buried on Sunday. This is the life of Solomon Grundy, just absolutely aimless. And Solomon Grundy met what would be the equivalent or tantamount of his soulmate on Tuesday or maybe Monday night, but then he went and married some other woman on Wednesday. So I mean, really, go Solomon Grundy and confess that you have been a waste of a life. rather than insist on burdening the ex-girlfriend that got you, that you nonetheless wasted the time off by trying to get her to kotisagini, angachatanga, ungamchatanga kipanga yama inkomo, nothing. How about you admit that that's what you did so that you might find healing? Because frankly, there is no repentance, there is no forgiveness of sins apart from confession and repentance. You gotta confess and repent, or there is no remission of sins. So you have to admit you were a Solomon Grundy. You've been wasting your talents. You have been wasting your life. You have been wasting the helper suitable that God gave you. You've been wasting the woman that the Lord threw in your lap. You broke her heart. You shattered her. Like no man's business. You bewitched the living daylights out of her because she would not come back up, bring back lost lover. You could die on Saturday and get buried on Sunday after living that worthless life. You could go to the God of the universe and admit that you have been Solomon Grundy for the first half of your life, and now it's time for you to serve him. Because there is absolutely nothing at all that is going to profit you to gain the whole world and then lose your soul. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and yet lose his soul? That same ex, he won't leave me alone. Because he recognizes that the women that he's had ever since then can't even stay with him on the phone past midnight. So he has no companionship and compatibility. He does not have it, and he has been longing for it ever since. He is dry, he's parched, he's in a desert land. He met his wife on Tuesday but married another one on Wednesday, and now he's trying to finish what he started. And really what he is facing is the death of Solomon Grundy, a worthless life following which you will die on a Saturday, get buried on Sunday, and nobody will remember you other than having been born to, I guess, a set of parents at some point in history. That's all that you will be, a bleep on the radar. But be relevant, be impactful, be something worth a while to write home about. Like, have scholars perpetually calling up archives of what you did. You can forget about that. Or you can repent and give your life over to Jesus Christ, that he might make of your latter years a much better thing than your former. But now you're going to be a monument, you see. You're going to be a lesson learned, a hard lesson at that, for the youth. That's why I keep saying, Gen Z. I am out here trying to talk to millennials and maybe even Gen Alphas, if at all they can understand what I'm saying. If they are yet to get out of their goo-goo gagas, I am trying to influence some youngsters out here to first and foremost never break their virginities, wait on the Lord until they get married, to have sex, and recognize the passion that you tend to find when you're just 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 25. You're never going to get it again at 31, 32, 33, 34, 40. You are likely going to meet your wife at 20. You are likely going to meet your wife at 17. You are likely going to meet your wife at 24, because the ones that come later on are never ever going to add up to some other chick in the past. The Lord made it that way so people will not go into their futures with passions wreaking havoc, them sowing their royal oats and sleeping all over the show before they settle down. The Lord makes sure that we meet some of our most passionate romances early, so we can get married early, and so we can have compatible, lovely, fresh relationships with the loves of our lives from the time we are 20 up until we die. But people are out here in the 21st century insisting on messing with the relationship that you happened upon at 26 when she was 22. I was 22 when I met that guy. He was 26. Proper. That was his only shot. That was his last shot. He got a passionate romance, a passionate one, at 26. And he decided that he's going to wait until 30, 31, just kind of scanning around. Whoa. The Lord does not work that way. If at all there is a passionate and a violently won soul, romance that you happen upon as a kid, marry it. It will not get better. Listen to me, Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, if at all you're out of your goo-goo gaga diapers yet. Listen to me. When I say take women seriously that you meet young, and stop fornicating, marry as quickly as you can so as to bridle your passions, because you are not going to find the same passion in your 40s. It's not going to happen in your mid-30s. It might, okay, but it's highly unlikely. You will miss some chick from long ago. And I am currently being bombarded by dudes who met me long ago that went and married other women, and they passed me up because they thought they had so many other options to run with. You see, I was the innocent one in this equation, and God has mercy on us all. I waited and waited and waited for my ex to propose marriage, and he never did. I then decided that I'm gonna wait on God for something to come along, and he was like, no, not on my watch. Pega mina pela, if you bring back lost lover, then pega mina pela will be the thing that we're doing over here, or look at me only. And if that doesn't work, nobody else is ever gonna love you. The Lord saw my pain. He saw my frustration. And so I stand to still fall in love quite violently. Although I don't even think that's ever going to happen. Why? Because I believe the rapture's going to happen first. So all these guys that think I'm going to get married and they feel threatened about me getting married to a point of wanting to block it from ever happening so that they don't ever have to regret what they did to me. Goodness gracious. I'm going to get caught up in the sky to meet the Lord in the air. And you will die in the tribulation having been nothing but a Solomon Grundy. I am not marrying some deadbeat from the past who realizes he's made a mistake. I've got a lot of them that are currently feeling like trash, and they would do everything and stop at nothing to make sure that I never get loved. I never get loved. Except herein lies the deal. I had my shot to have a flagrant, violent, absolutely tumultuous, violent romance. A whole volcano, a whole ocean just like crashing, waves against the beach. Yeah. I had my shot at that when I was a kid. And unfortunately for me, sorry for the girls right in question. Kisono. Yeah, sorry for the one that is the heartbroken. These guys thought that, I'm still young, I'm sowing my royal oats, gumnandi lana, I'll meet another karabo, and they never did. My first love put witchcraft on me. I met him when I was 17. And to this day, I feel as if though if we had gotten married, my life would have come out a lot easier. But he's the one that crushed me. So I had to move on. The second guy I loved, witchcraft, he ended up dying in a car accident. After we broke up years later, he heard of me and my ex of 5 years, the one that I was speaking about, Wakukotisa, and that got him so jealous that he ended up, I got a dream where he was telling me, you're mine, you're not going anywhere. And I was like, no, I'm not. He died in a car accident at just the age of 30. Still living a wild life. There was a dude that passed me up when I was working at MTN. I told you he went and married another woman. It's another story for another day. Yeah. He thought he had many options, and when I lost a job, he was too shallow to continue to pursue me. And so for those reasons, he let me go, and now today he is like properly pulling out his hairs and doing all different kinds of witchcraft to make sure I never marry anyone. I'm about to tell you about another one that I dreamt about last night, that I was so passionately and so violently in love with when I was 27 and he was like 36 or 7 or whatever, almost 10 years older than me. And now I keep getting nightmares about it, guys, as in I'm going to tell you that dream now. That's what's got me ranting like this. Essentially, when I was still young enough to get married off, because that's when you meet the most passionate of romances, and if you don't seal the deal by a certain time, the Lord does not want us fornicating. He knows that our passions start to wreak havoc in our bodies around our teenage years. And so really, the earlier you get married, the better. This whole thing of writing it out and waiting for like ever in a day, you will find yourself at 35 unable to meet love. You will find yourself at 37 unable to find a woman that you can actually be very passionate about. You will remember somebody that you wish you had made an honest woman out of early enough, and yet you never did it. And you will then become the bane of the existence of that woman. And then on that day, because you're busy dedicating all of your hard-earned girth that God gave you on pursuing a woman into oblivion, you are wasting your life. You are wasting your talent. You are wasting hyaluronic acid. You are throwing away a perfectly viable life that God has set apart to do a job. You've got a job in the sight of God that you gotta do. Make disciples of all nations. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. But you're busy focusing on a woman that is not your wife. Also at the expense of the one that you made a wife. And so you are breaking the heart of some other woman who likely in and of herself was the first love of some other guy, or in and of herself she passed up some other guy that she now can't stop thinking about. So you've got two people in a marriage that are in love with other people altogether, and you are now knocking on doors of your first loves that you met when you were all 17, when you were all 20, when you were all 25, and you wasted all that time. Hi buddy. I don't even think I'm ever gonna fall in love again. Why? Because I've done it so many times that at this point, where in the world is the passion gonna come from? Where's it gonna come from? I wasted my emotions on men that did not take me seriously until now, and they wanna marry me even though they've been married to women already. Kotisa ring. I made a good decision with my girls to not kotisa, because it would not have borne fruit for me, because look at me, I'm still single at 40. It would not have made a difference. The thing that made my ex's family love me was my character. So what I'm trying to help you understand is that certain things are just cast in stone. They're black and white. There's really no gray area about it, even for people who are lost in the world. I was lost when I was dating my ex. I was not yet born again, and yet it appeared that my character triumphed. It trumped and triumphed, do you understand, over domesticatedness, or, like slavery, essentially. That's what it was. The woman that I guess won my ex's family over with all of her ashy need, like washing of everybody's laundry, on a Saturday morning, on a Saturday evening, Yeah, well, she won them over with all of that hard labor, and I got to keep my nail manicure and my youthful hands. I got to keep it and not have to clean a single pot. That's what's good. Yeah, and yet they still loved me. Why? Because my character. I was ride or die to their son. I was ride or die to a guy that so many other women had hurt because he was not where he needed to be in life. He was kind of slow in progressing, and I loved him despite how staraga he was. I built him up to being a stronger man. Do you understand? Ke moagile. That's what a helper suitable is. Ne ke le moagi ko that guy. I built him. And so because I did not care about what under heaven it is that he had or did not have, but I loved him and I loved how he loved me. His family loved me for showing character in the life of a guy that was a little bit slow in comparison to everybody else to progress in life. But unfortunately, that same slow guy, upon finally ramping up, upon finally getting what he needed to get, upon finally arriving at the booster point of his life, upon ultimately ending up the swan that started out an ugly duckling amidst the boys, he started to pass me shit and give me attitude. Because that's just always been the disposition of my ex-boyfriend. He met me, and even though his family liked me, and even though he crushed on me, even though he had feelings for me, even though he loved me, he always thought he could do better. For whatever reason, I do not know. He always thought he could find a woman more beautiful, a woman less whatever, a woman more whatever. He was never satisfied. His rapacity made him drag his feet along. And so once he finally made money, he imagined he was now in a position to get exactly who he wanted. Understand that there was a woman who came prior to me that he wanted, that didn't want him because he was working in a call center. He didn't have money. And he married that woman today. He married the gold digger. So he imagined that he needed to go and get money in order for him to finally win the kind of woman that he wants. And he finally did get her. But now, today, what he lacks is loyalty. What he lacks is safety in a relationship. What he lacks is trust. What he lacks is comfort. What he lacks is ease. What he lacks is that hammock that you get to swing in when you are so comfortable with a woman that you don't have to try too hard. He doesn't have that anymore. He's constantly looking over his shoulder, worried that she's gonna leave, because she's obviously a gold digger. My ex, when he started to make money, started to pass me shade. I don't even know why he did that, because it's not like I was not classy. He treated me like I was a village girl. Like, you know, these guys that fall in love with girls in their villages as they're growing up. Everybody is out here walking 10 kilometers to school every day and back, and they're so in love in their school uniforms when they're still teenagers. And then the guy goes to Wits University, and when he's in the city now, he's seeing all of these fast randos on campus, and he's starting to underestimate his village girl because she does not know the city life. My ex treated me like I was a village girl, except I was far more advanced than him in terms of my career. I was killing it. I had my own apartment. I was basically what many women in this world would call fabulous. I was the kind of girl that young women aspired to be. I had a very successful career. On top of that, young girls indeed did admire me. When I was in high school, I was freaking popular. Not only was I popular, but I was also well liked by young girls. By popular, I mean with guys. I was a beautiful girl that was wanted. Not only that, I was also classy. And the grade 8s and 9s, when I was in matric, used to, from the time I would walk into the school premises in the mornings, literally from a distance from the balconies where they were queuing to go into class, be like, Karabo, Karabo, hi. I was probably like Cher or Dion in the movie Clueless. I was this popular little thing. And that never stopped. As I continued on in life, I've always been a little bit of an admirable woman. Oh, cool chick. I've always been a cool chick. That's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. So I don't even know where under heaven my ex-boyfriend got the mentality that I was like a blasé girl. I can't do the mathematics. I cannot do the mathematics. I literally do not know who in the world fed him that rubbish to make him underestimate me, because I've always been a diva. There would be guys back in the day when I was dating my ex that would look at him and be like, Uyamosha, what are you doing? Like, you'd proper have a girl that so many of us want. That is what under heaven was going on. So the blindness of my ex-boyfriend was self-freaking imposed. It was self-imposed. It was self-imposed in the worst way. Even his own little sister used to have a fan on me. A fan of mine. There's young girls, young women always just looked up to me. It's just something that I've always carried, because I don't know, of the way that I carry myself. And yet this dude could not see that Obambila, a woman that frankly every guy would love to walk down the aisle, but he still thought he could do better. He still thought that he could do better. I remember one time my mom asked me for a favor. There was a friend of hers from her work that had a daughter that used to attend Wits University, and she was a full-time student, so younger than me by a couple of years, and I was a part-time student, and she was going to finish her lectures late at night. Not lectures, sorry, but she had to stay at school in the library studying or something. And her mother, because she knew that I was going to leave, because the mom knew that I was going to be at school up until a certain time, given that I'm part-time, I do evening lectures. She asked me if I can't take her daughter home, if I can't pick up take her daughter home. My ex-boyfriend used to work at Liberty Life, and that day he was gonna sleep over at my apartment, so he stayed in the office until very late. And then I would not pick him up. Sorry, I first picked up this girl because she was on campus with me already, and my ex-boyfriend, I would then pick him up later. She was a very beautiful young girl. She could have been like, she was doing BCom marketing. She could have been maybe 20, right, while I was like 24 or something. So they came off it 4 years, and my ex acted such a fool in the room. Like, this girl, I picked her up, and she sat at the back automatically because I told her that I'm gonna go pick up my boyfriend and then we're gonna go home, right? She's like, no, I'm cool. And she sat at the back. Very, very pretty girl, like extremely beautiful. Okay, I did not feel any kind of way with having this girl in my backseat. I did not think I needed to make my man I didn't feel scared or intimidated or threatened. But when my ex came into the car and saw this girl in the back, and I was like, this is Bule, this is my boyfriend, etc., right? My ex saw how beautiful this girl is, and all throughout the ride he was acting such a fool. He was so strange, and he was also kind of dissy, like teasy of me, like in a way that he never used to be in my presence. It's like he was spazzing over this girl. He was crashing over this girl, this very pretty girl in the back of the car. And ever since then, I've always just felt like my ex-boyfriend does not think I'm beautiful, or at least as beautiful as some other girls are. That girl was pretty. I'm not gonna say if she was prettier than me or less. It did not matter. She was just a pretty young girl that ona by 4 years, okay, more or less type establishment thing. And I was cool to be big sister to that girl until I got jealous of her because my ex was spazzing over her to a point of teasing me. When that whole thing happened, right after that event, ever since then, I'd always just kind of suspected and felt like my ex feels like he's settling for me, like he can do better. And he actually had a friend, some other dude that was into construction and what have you, and he was a friend that was not always hanging out with my ex, but he hung out with him enough times to influence him. This guy always used to say of my ex-boyfriend was a yellow bone, a bright yellow bone, and I'm a dark girl. I'm dark chocolate, right? Maybe not dark chocolate, but I'm more dark, right? So YouTube cameras will often make you look lighter than you are in real life, guys, because of lighting conditions in the environment that you're in, and whatever it is that are the settings of the camera that will always cause your skin to look lighter than it is in waking life. I'm darker than this in real life. I don't look like this. My skin is darker than this in real life. I'm not dark, but I am definitely darker than this if you were to see me personally, type establishment thing. And so I qualify as a dark in complexion girl, all right? And this guy, right, I keep saying, Lori, I've always struggled with colorism ever since growing up. I was always encircled by very bright yellow friends as the only dark girl there, and it has won me quite a lot of insecurity until I kind of got over it. That's what's good. So my ex-boyfriend had a friend that was severely colorist, and in and of himself he was quite a dark guy, right? While my ex was like this bright yellow bone, and he had this like baby face with these like sort of kind of Chinese eyes and what have you. My ex was a cute dude, okay, and he would always look at me, this guy in front of me, like he was so rude, he didn't care. He would say to my ex-boyfriend, hey boy, you're such a pretty boy, you're such a pretty boy, you deserve a yellow bone. Like, he proper would say that to my ex-boyfriend in front of me. Dang, kind of like second guessing who I am on some, no offense to you, Karabo, but this guy needs himself a yellow bone. My ex went and married a woman that is dark just like me, if not slightly darker. So he was never really colorist at all, and yet he allowed some colorist friend to influence him into thinking that he did not find me attractive when he was drawn to me out of a band of something like 10 girls. The first day that I met my ex, I was having lunch with something like 10 other women, and he looked at me. He wanted me. And some of my friends, in fact, most of my friends were yellow bones in comparison to me, that I was like the dark one. I was always the dark one. And in that room, he landed his eyes on me. So he was definitely not perturbed or disturbed or had some vertigo in his eyes whenever it came to dark and complexion girls, and yet he allowed that narrative to tarnish how under heaven it is that he looked at me. This guy would keep on punting that in his face on some, you deserve a yellow bone. So I feel as if though my ex, and that girl, by the way, Ole, in my car, the one that I picked up from Wits, was not necessarily a yellow bone. She was lighter than me, however. She was one of those kind of Gabrielle Union, you know, she's not dark, she's not light, she's kind of brown. That girl was like that. And every time I would ever since that day when I picked up that go-go Wits that my ex was spazzing over in the car when I was with him, and he was teasing me, trying to make me look like I'm nobody in front of this girl, and then after she left he was normal again. I felt so insecure, but I didn't raise it, right? I've always just felt like this guy he likes me, he loves me, but he feels like he can do better. So where is the influence coming from? He allowed some Dumbo friend, and many maybe like him, who told him, what you need is a yellow bone. Like black guys with colorism, black culture, they just like, they probably will tell men uguti la utolumfazi just because a woman is bright yellow, like no other thing is popping out of her. She's not oozing anything that is particularly spectacular. No ounce of virtue is influencing this decision, nothing but just the yellow skin. And I often like to say that yellow girls have it bad, in the sense that guys sometimes babanyala and like speak, because apparently it's the fashionable thing to do, to marry yellow bone girls, instead of actually truly just going out of your way to discover if this is the kind of girl that you should be with. Like a proper, interview process. That's what dates are, like mini interviews. Instead of really trying to find out if you're really in love here, if this woman and you are compatible, they're so fast to just propose marriage to yellow girls that find themselves now in marriages with men that they did not sign up for, who were marrying them as trophies and not so much as women themselves. Like women who get married off to men for nothing but their yellow beauty, and even though they've got so much more to offer, these men just expect them to shut up and drive. They just expect them to shut up and be pretty, be my trophy, when this woman is a whole neuroscientist and she's trying to get heard, but her yellow skin is all that's crying out volumes to this man, and nothing but. So they end up, these women, these very light in complexion women, sometimes finding themselves miserable in marriages with men who don't take them seriously, who listen to nothing but their beauty, so they don't get heard. How about utwiwi? So I feel sorry for them, and I also feel sorry for dark girls who get passed up because of colorism. However, nonetheless, I do believe that colorism had a big thing to do with why my ex was busy dragging his feet where I'm concerned, coupled with a few other things. My strength, academically as well as professionally, used to cause some misogynistic guys' voices around his life, including his own dad, to be like, women like this are ultimately going to leave. When I was so ride or die and so supportive from the very get-go when he had nothing, and yet I was apparently anticipated or forecast to one day pass my ex shade because now I graduated. Whoa, I took this guy as an ex. So why would a degree change how I look at him? I was always trying to raise him up, cause him to level up and do a better thing. So why all of a sudden would I change that? I was never going to change on him, but guys got to him. So you see this phenomenon that I'm explaining with my ex-boyfriend right now. I am ultimately going to get to a point concerning it where some other dude is concerned, where a guy is made to second guess his own heart. So his own feelings. He knows they're passionate, they're strong. He knows he's never gotten away better with another woman. He knows there has never been better electricity with another woman. He knows he has never had so much chemistry with another woman. He knows that something is special about this situation. And then he will allow some dumb voices in the periphery to educate him alternatively about this woman until he passes up something so passionate that now all he can do is try and scrape around that woman's life later on, after marrying the very thing that everybody recommended should he marry, based on shallow decisions instead of sound character investigating, what is this, like endeavors, like just trying to make sure this person is compatible, they make sense for you, blah blah wada fish paste. Instead of making a decision on character, you're making a decision on stupid things like skin tone, stupid things like guy, stupid things like proper, like guys. Anyway, I'm getting to that point. So my ex-boyfriend messed up and allowed himself to hurt me when he had never found anything better. If he had gone to date another girl, Ole Wakovitz, that was the same age as his younger sister, I don't know what would have become of that, whether or not he would have had anything in common with her. Bottom line is, he would have literally passed a woman's shade based on what he imagines is her lack or her substandard beauty, or her substandard character suite. Whatever she's got going down, I can do one up on her. But that's just the thing, when a guy happens upon something really great, when he happens upon a really good girl, when he finds a woman that is phenomenal in comparison to every other woman he's ever seen or been with, he thinks that he is so great at hunting and gathering, so great at conquering, and ultimately getting what he wants, that if he could get someone as great as Karabo, then it's only a matter of expertise, experience, a little bit of time, and a little bit of a cleaner shot to get an even more polished version of Karabo. Once they meet a really great girl, they thoroughly think they can do ever so slightly better, ever so marginally better, and then they never do. And that's exactly what happened to my ex. He thought he could do marginally better than me, maybe getting a yellow version of Karabo, and he never found her. He is now scrummaging around, trying to find the same passion he lost, and he cannot come up for air. And something of that nature happened with some dude, Wako MTN, and he was the guy that I frankly attribute my Christianity and my growth and my fervor to him. Some dude that I dreamt about last night now finally seducing me. He turned to witchcraft. I don't even know. He did not turn to witchcraft because of me. He'd already been dabbling, but God used him. Earlier, when I started talking this whole series about Solomon Grundy throwing away hyaluronic acid, the way he's so wasteful, I was speaking about a guy that wasted his years and opportunity, and he found himself in my ecosystem only because he was messing with not God. He was messing with the devil. I met a guy at MTN a couple of years ago, when I was still working there. Not shortly after coming to Christ. Let me say shortly after coming to Christ, I was newly-ish saved. Okay, I was single at this point and had been for a minute, and I wanted, to get married. I was going to church every Sunday, but I was unsanctified. I told you guys that when you get born again in a country like South Africa, there's always a risk that you might just find yourself hovering below sea level or above sea level, or just doing enough, because of the fact that so many people who profess to be Christian are lukewarm. They're not serious with God, and so you might be tempted to think that you can just use Christianity as an accessory, a badge, and not really be serious about God. And that's what I was doing. I was going to church every Sunday. I was, not trying to have sex before marriage, but I wasn't 100% solidly convicted about that. I was studying the scriptures. I was interested in the things of God, but nothing ever propelled me to seriously interrogate the Bible and figure out what in the world under heaven makes for a truly consecrated Christian, somebody that's going to please God. And never did I ever get into that level of study and that level of upbringing, sanctification, growth, discipling, until I met a man that I fell so head over heels violently in love with and wanted so badly to be his wife, that I wanted to be the kind of woman that such a man as that would want to marry. I was inspired to be sanctified and be made better because of my feelings for a guy. So I got born again. So regeneration happened through a myriad of steps, but sanctification happened because I fell in love with a guy. What is this? This dude started working at MTN, he was hired as a project manager, and his boss introduced us to each other. His boss saw something in us. And initially when I met him, I wasn't interested in him. He was just this guy in Jefela. But over time, something drew me to him. There was something very magnetic about him. I found myself just adoring this guy. He was just super lovable. And I did not know what in the world under heaven was the je ne sais quoi, the edge that this dude had. It helped that he got close to guys that I was tight with. Like guys that I was always hanging out with in the building. He got close to them. So I then got close to him. And every time we would all hang out, I would just find this guy so incredibly just freaking fascinating. I liked him so much. Unankaza, in the worst way. He was so calm, so chill. Something about him was oozing so much grace. There was so much God, I guess, coming out of him, right? He was evaporating God. And I did not know that that's what that was. And because of my interest in him, I then started to lie to my boys, like the boys that were my boys that were his friends. We were all friends, right? We were all colleagues that hang out type thing. Not after work, but we would have lunch together and whatever. We were part of the same team. We were kind of tight. So these guys that I'd always been friends with, walking around with, I started to lie to them, right? On some, let's say his name was Moachi, right? I was like, Kingi, I have this friend that I think would really like Moachi, type thing. She would really like him. I want to hook him up. Is he single? I started to basically ask questions to my friends, the guys, about him that would give me details about whether or not it was safe for me to like this guy, because I was falling for him, free falling. It was not free falling, but I liked him quite a lot. But I did not want my heart to run amok without knowing he was run amokable. Plus, because of the fact that I had picked up that this guy liked me back. When guys like you, how they look at you, all that jazz. I was always just catching him staring at me. So I knew that I told you guys yesterday that it's possible to control your feelings for a person, and if at all you can prevent heartbreak, do so. So it's pointless for you to allow yourself to fall in love with someone that you don't know likes you back. So I felt like I had enough information to run with to gauge that this guy liked me back. Every time I would ask for something, he would go quickly run and go get it. So it's a lot of things hinted to me that this guy might potentially, be interested back in me. Anyway, whatever. whatever, long story short, I'm really gonna cut this short. This guy, I would ask my friends on some, I have this friend that I really think would be great with Moachi. They like, when I look at him, I just see her. The two of them would be so cute together. There was no such friend. Okay, so is he single? And then his boys, my friends, would be like, yeah, he's single, he's unmarried. If anything, he's what do you call this? His family keeps on asking him when he's gonna get married, right? I knew what his age was. He was almost 10 years older than me, because he was a colleague, and it was just easy to come up to happen upon such information as that. But what I wanted to know, and on top of that, I did want a guy that was older, because of the fact that I was just so annoyed by all these guys my age as well, right? I felt like if they were older, maybe they might be a little bit more mature than my ex. I definitely wanted a graduation from what I had experienced before. So my friends would confirm that the guy is single and his family is giving him pressure about marriage. So when I found that out, I was like, oh, okay. I was a dabbling Christian. I was a Christian, but I was not solidly convicted of sexual sin. That much is true. I would have likely fornicated if at all I did not meet with severe conviction in Christ, thanks to studying the scriptures. Okay, and what would lead me to ultimately studying a lot would be this guy. So because I was convicted somewhat of sexual sin, I wanted to know if he would be the kind of guy that's prepared to wait for a woman to have sex after marriage. So I kept on probing with my friend on some, so would he, like, let's say my friend's name, I gave her the name Lerato. I was like, my friend Lerato and Moachi, they would look so good together, but Moachi is like a total Christian. She's so, like, super strict and stuff, and she doesn't want to have sex before marriage. So would Moachi be prepared to wait? And this guy was like, Moachi is like a whole Christian, like he grew up in like a whole Christian family and everything. Like, if anything, he is waiting on like his God for a godly woman type thing. And that's what just like took me off the railings. It low-key kind of confirmed to me that the thing that was oozing off this guy and why he was so different from everybody else was basically Christianity. Okay, so when I got confirmed to that he was waiting, he would be prepared to wait for a woman to have sex after marriage and all that jazz, that's when I was like, whoa. And then my feelings just grew and grew and grew. Many more events would happen go from that point on that would then draw me even closer to crushing on this guy. Do you understand that, like, things that came out, things he said, something that happened to him in his own personal life, what is this, that drew me to develop some pretty like hard knock feelings for him type thing. And I was convinced that this guy was a super duper Christian, right? And I was like, whoa, this could be my husband. So guys, I have never prayed more for and about a man than I did for and about that guy. Well, not as at that date, because the other dude that would rock up that I thought was my husband, I have prayed a lot about him, right? However, this guy was the first dude that I ever like took to God in prayer, like every single day, seeking the Lord's face to panel beat him, fix him, give him grace, and also give me grace and whatnot. And I asked the Lord to make me, literally I took it to God in prayer. I was like, make me the kind of woman that would make for a good wife for him, because he looks like he's looking for a serious woman. And it was in answering that prayer that God then led me men like Paul Washer, where I would Google research on YouTube stuff like biblical womanhood, what makes for a godly wife, what do godly men want, and I found myself just getting trained and instructed by very good men in the faith that are very sound. And Paul Washer has like a whole series on biblical womanhood, and I consumed this content, guys, day and night. And Ronald, when you listen to Paul Washer, you're inevitably going to happen upon the Bible, the gospel, sorry. You're inevitably going to happen upon sanctification. He really like hammers down chastity and virtue and fleeing from sensuality and godliness, bridling the flesh in submission to the Holy Spirit, all that jazz. Like, Paul Washer is an excellent teacher. You don't have to tell me twice. And so because I happened upon a lot of biblical womanhood sermons by Paul Washer, I started to watch movies that Paul Washer would recommend, like Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice, because he liked them. And not only that, I also happened upon other sermons of Paul Washer. And when you listen to other sermons of Paul Washer, you then get to led to other preachers that are like Paul Washer. So from Paul Washer, I would listen to John MacArthur, to Stephen Lawson, to John Piper. I would listen to Tim Conway, all those people, and I just got instructed. These are the teachers, these are the men, American preachers that are very sound. They led me to Christ. And once you listen to enough of these men, you will then be led to a barely perused section of YouTube that is for the Puritans, like dead preachers that were really sound. So I found out about Charles Spurgeon, A.W. Pink, Tozer, all those guys, and I would listen on a loop. Jonathan Edwards, I would listen to sermons on a loop, and I got so in 1 year. I got so sanctified in that 1 year because I took that advice seriously. I was a house built upon the rock. Everything that I heard from these men recommending a woman ought to be, I worked like a dog intentionally to actually be that thing. So I changed everything, even my poise, my what do you call this thing? My posture. I changed it from the slack little worldly girl that I was. I then got recommended this book by a colleague that was in the church downstairs at work that I used to go to, because I was a single woman, and she was like, if you're a single woman and you're waiting on the Lord for a husband, I would recommend you read this book. And I went to what is this? Exclusive Books at Clearwater, and I bought it. I was surprised to find it there because I didn't know that they had a Christian bookstore at Clearwater, Kum Books. I found it at Exclusive Books. It's called Fascinating Womanhood. This book called Fascinating Womanhood, I went and bought it based on the counsel that I got from this lady at work, and I read it and I believed everything in there, and I started to employ the advice given me in that book. And Fascinating Womanhood is basically a book that teaches women to be coy, humble, you get my point, everything that makes you a girl, but also godly. It's Christian. Yeah, I took the advice in Fascinating Womanhood, understanding myself as a woman that came from the world having been kind of androgynous and butch, and all the women who independent, throw your hands up in there. I saw in the book Fascinating Womanhood that that's not how you act as a godly girl. It was better for me to be coy and to not be so brazen with all of my girth and my intelligence and all the money I make, but rather be a sweet little girl. And I went out of my way to basically work really hard on that and uproot feminism out of me. That's what I'm trying. Fascinating Womanhood started that journey for me, coupled with other women in the faith that would then confirm that that's the right path to take. So I had to brittle and subdue that random rubbish right out of me, and I did all that because I fell in love with a guy. I fell in love with a guy, and I wanted to be the kind of woman that he could bring around his church folk, the kind of woman that he could bring around his mom, his dad, and say, I finally found a good thing. I wanted to be that thing, and I uprooted a lot of boraf that comes with women in the world in just 1 year, and I became such a sweet fragrance of a girl just walking around. Nobody would tell you at the churches that I used to attend that I was a whole strong project manager / program manager, killing it, kicking it, earning quite a healthy salary. I remember when I was at Grace, because I hopped to and from multiple churches. There was this one girl that I gave a lift to Bara, where she would take taxis to go home. And as we were driving, she asked me questions. She was part of the children's church ministry that I was part of, and she would ask me questions. So what do you do? Where do you go to school? She thought I was a student, but I told her that no, I'm a project manager. I work in corporate. And what she said to me was, "Whoa, you're really humble. You're really humble, because I thought you were just like, yeah, not struggling, but a meager woman, a lowly woman. I thought you didn't have much to yourself." People never knew that I was a strong career woman because I never ever let that ooze off me, like ever. I never used my girthy intelligence. I limited how much I bring forward that side of me because I wanted to be a coy, godly, humble, sweet woman. And I worked on it so well that people in my church didn't even know that I was a whole career woman. It was not, it didn't come out at all. It was not evident, even in the slightest. I just looked like some girl that probably was going back to, if at all I had a job, maybe I'm somebody's secretary or something. Like I oozed that. I had that thing going for me. I was very coy, and I also allowed men in particular to always have the last laugh, always have the last say. I made sure that I never conquered them in arguments, in conversations. I made sure that I never brought out all of my smarts. I made sure that I kept my conversations understandable without using all of the girth of my vocabulary, so that I could just sound like this quaint dainty girl. And I was always, naturally I'm quite bubbly, I'm always giggly, I'm always giddy all over the show. But when it comes time to be serious, I can be serious. Even that seriousness, I would leave it at the door, unless of course I needed it for my meetings, I needed it for my job. I was only on my job, the androgynous thing that I can be. But outside of a boardroom, and even at my desk where I'm hanging out with colleagues, before going back to do the minutes of the meeting, I was like, ha ha ha, I was a sweet quay girl. And that actually caused me to get hurt quite a lot, because people did not know how strong I am. Today, they would be shocked out of their minds. I had to bring out all the guns blazing that I have got due to the fact that people decided to just kill me, trash me, crush me. Do you understand? And now and I don't hold back anymore. But that holding back thing, I learned it from Fascinating Womanhood. It is not a flaw, it is a virtue. Even though you are wildly gifted as a woman, enigmatic like no man's business, you do have a prerogative to have a peaceable and a quiet spirit. You have got to subdue it. You literally have to shut up and let men speak. It's, whether or not you're intelligent, there is a place for everything. In Ecclesiastes, there is a season for everything. A time to rise, a time to a time to make war, a time for peace, a time for everything. There is a time for you to bring out that girth inside your body that you've got naturally, and then there is a time to subdue yourself and put yourself on a threshing floor like Ruth, to call your husband Lord with a small L, as Sarah called her man Lord. I went to training on how to be a godly girl so as to not overwhelm a man with all of my giftedness, because I knew that was my position. I was to be a helper suitable and not the cooing, conquering genius that my mom and dad's genes gave me. Yeah, that's how I was gonna get a husband, because I was not about to allow myself to just be this butch thing that's content to pride herself in being better at mathematics than my man. Like, no. I knew that I didn't want that, because I wanted to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. I wanted the picket fence. I wanted the steamy windows in the evening that my husband would come home to on a winter night, and just relax and with me cooking and be met by kids at the door. I wanted to be a traditional wife. Thank you, that's the word. A trad wife. I wanted to be a trad wife. And whether or not I'm a genius is irrelevant. Whether or not I am this thing that you're looking at right now was irrelevant to me, because I knew what I wanted, and I was going to work on myself to basically subdue myself, humble, and be at the threshing floor of my man for the rest of my days, even limiting the scope of what I can do when it comes to giving him glory. That even amidst the two of us, fine, I can come out but amidst people, he will always be made to look like he's bigger, girthier than me. Amidst people, he will always I will never have to interject or intervene, and nobody will ever suspect that he has got this strong wife. They would always just see this coy lady, but I would have been a helper suitable that would have enabled his cause along the wind beneath his wings. I understood my role. I understood my purpose. I understood that just because I have what it takes to be a 100% or 110% man, I definitely do not want to be one. I abandoned feminism at the door. Danki-san. However, sadly, the Bible says, don't cast your pearls to the pigs, nor give what is sacred to dogs, lest they should trample them underfoot and then turn around and tear you to pieces. When you do that, for a man that is not truly consecrated, for a man that is not truly of God, for a man that is not serious about the Lord, you are going to get used as a namby-pamby rag doll to be dragged to and from the floor. And Jeffela just destroyed for no other reason than the fact that you can be used. So I went and studied biblical womanhood in order to be made fit for purpose for a particular man. But God taught me biblical womanhood in order to be made fit for purpose for the right man, and not so much that man. He used that guy, my feelings for him, to raise me up to be that kind of girl. And when then I would act like that coy girl in his presence, he just imagined me this Dumbo Barbie thing. And guys, I never used to act dumb. I was just limited. I was restricted. I did not bring out all of me. I did not blossom all of my shoots. I only brought just enough to not overwhelm a man, to give him the red carpet to basically walk on it, for he was the man. So I'm not saying women must dumb themselves down. You cannot be overtaking a room when your man is there, because men will always feel there will always be something that feels cooed by a woman of that nature, and stuff like that never works out. I don't care how many times women might want to change that and imagine that it is possible for a man to be a stay-at-home or even dominated by his wife and the relationship be okay. It'll never work. A man has to be stronger and girthier than a woman. Even if the woman naturally is very thick and very strong, girthy, she has a responsibility to be the wind beneath his wings. She has a responsibility to make him big in a way that shrinks her. She has to fade in his background in a way that fades her when everybody is in the room, that he might always be given one up. And if you've got a bone to pick with him, you pick it with him in private, and you bring out all this girth in his grill in private. Do you understand? You bring out Bojotle Bona in private. That's what's good. I'm looking at the time and it's really ransacking me. You bring out Bojotle in private between the two of you, so your man will know the fullness of you ultimately. But he will absolutely adore and appreciate the fact that you make him, basically you put him at the forefront while you stand at the back. And you allow him to shine while you're his shadow. You properly allow him to be the girthy thing that you are. Well, we're not ubasiriti. It is okay. That's what you ought to do. Insofar as he can appreciate that you enable him to be the leader, the big girthy thing that he appears to be out there, he will appreciate that you don't overwhelm him to a point of disrespect. But a guy has got to have the right perspective, the right mindset to have that kind of a woman. Otherwise, it will be misuse, it will be abuse, it will be the abuse of authority. It'll be the abuse of God's insistence on a woman's submission. It'll be the abuse of God's petitions to women to have a peaceable and quiet spirit and to be silent. When a man does not quite understand what God expects of him in a lot of women, he will abuse that authority. And so therefore make his wife's life a living nightmare. And that's when you all of a sudden find these women coming out as these butch ingas, where before they were buried behind some man, that disrespected what under heaven it is that was the woman's decision to make herself small so he could be big. It happened, for instance, with Mariah Carey. She was married to a dude that subdued her for very long, expecting her to be a particular thing with an iron fist. And by the time she came out, everybody was like, yo, she became this androgynous butch. I am a sexually liberated thing, and watch me and my thunder thighs and my guai and my cleavage. And from there's a hero to dream love. Whoa, it was like such a day and night change with Mariah Carey that what do you call this? Everybody was shocked when she finally came out. That's what happens with a woman that tries to be a helper suitable to a man that is just lording it over with a gavel and an iron fist in her life, and so forcing submission down her throat in a way that is not loving the way that Christ loved the church. This woman will come out like Mariah Carey and shock the whole world with her sexuality, her androgyny, and all of the girth of manhood that she actually had, to prove that all along I've been stymied. Do you understand? However, a man that is responsible with that power in a woman, nobody will ever know the thick side of that woman that is in closed corners, in closed doors with the husband. The two of them, Abali too, the thing that she is to support him and enable him along. This guy will have wings stretching the horizon of a city, and this woman will be the wind beneath those wings, and no one will ever know her girth, and no one will ever know what is this, the overshadowing and overbearing actual true thickness that she has because of the man, because this woman is content on that day with how her man loves her as Christ loves the church. She will be content with being doted over as a wife. And so for her, it won't be necessary to prove to the world that she can crunch numbers like Einstein. It won't be necessary. Depending on what she wants and having the right perspective, this woman will be at peace with not underestimation, but just, what's the word that I am looking for? Humility. Thank you. Not underestimation, but just a humble, peaceable, and a quiet spirit. She can laugh at days to come. Her husband's confidence is in her. She considers a field and she buys it. She is a force to be reckoned with, but the whole world doesn't need to know. That's what a helper suitable is. But women will always try to take over men when these men are mistreating them, when they're abusive. But if a man loves a woman, she won't feel a need to come out to everybody like a homosexual out of the closet. She won't find a need. And I never would have found a need to do what I'm doing right now. There would have never been a need for it if I got loved, guys. I would have had what I wanted, Mus. It would be like a pacifier in the mouth of a baby. It's crying, wah, wah, wah. You put a pacifier, the baby's quiet. My pacifier would have been a loving husband. This pouncing beast, this monster that I am today, would never have come out if a man had just loved me. I never. However, my husband would have known the full girth of who I am amidst the two of us and just loved it. That's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. It's not being a pick me. It's seeing the perspective of Christ, making it your prerogative to be a particular way. Upon making it your prerogative, seeking the Lord's face by the Holy Spirit to enable you to overcome your desire as a woman to coo over your husband, your desire as a woman to want to conquer what God's decision for roles between men and women are. And once that you've been given grace to do that, you will recognize the glory and the beauty of being a loved wife. You can run businesses, you can make decisions, you can be a strong project manager, a good one, but when it comes to your husband, you are his wife, and you will be quiet, and you will stand by him, and you will support him, and you will pull him to the side instead of interjecting in these conversations to talk to him about something you find strange and out of whack, and he will appreciate you for that and not abuse his authority. But a man that has got that kind of woman is not trained by the scriptures is just going to be a bully. He's an Ike Turner. He's a bully. He's Mariah Carey's husband. He is a bully that's going to make a woman hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and then next thing you're going to see an androgynous beast that's coming out with hypersexuality that nobody imagined could ever come out of such a sweet gonyane, like what happened with Mariah Carey. I was playing with fire with that guy. I was going to get hurt something bad. I was going to get hurt because he wasn't serious with God. Let's do one last part so as to explain the rest of this story.